Hey guys, so today we're going to dive a little bit more into Unit 3, and Unit 3 does contain the usage of lists. And this is a super important part because on the AP exam, one of the requirements that you need to have is to be able to include a type of list in your project. That's completely up to you how you're going to do that, but I'm going to show you today how one way of making a list and using the list, and more specifically using selection so that you can get the points on your AP exam. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you the final project. This is the exemplar of what you should get. So we have a list here that's called shopping list. It has some items on it, and it's items 1 through 7. The 1 through 7 are called indexes, meaning that is pretty much kind of like the address of the item that's on the list, right? So if I were to look at index 4, well, that's grapes. If I were to look at index 7, well, that's limes. Just know that on the AP exam, again, the indexes do not always start with the number 0. They could start with the number, do not always start with the number 1. They could start with the number 0. So you need to be careful on that, but you will get the information on the multiple choice questions. Just make sure that it is something that you look out for and not just automatically assume that the indexes start with 1. So here what you have are 4 buttons or sprites that have a costume on them that look like a button. So I can add an item. In this case, when I add an item, it asks me, the user, to type in an item. So here I'm going to type in something like I don't know, anything, berries. I'm going to press enter, and you can see that it adds berries to the end of the list. It is possible to add to different indexes of the list, but for right now we're not going to do that. We're just going to work with adding it to the end of the list. Also, you can clear the list, which ends up setting the list to 0 or length 0. You can also, I'm going to add more items just to make it B, C, D. By the way, when you add items, that means the word is called the term that's used is to populate a list. So that means you're adding items to the list. 3, 4. Right. Again, I just put a bunch of items in this. I can clear the list, which you saw. I can also search for items on the list. For example, I click search and it says what item do you want to check that is on the list or not. I'm going to type in B, and it says item is already on the list. If I search and I put something that's not there, like 6, enter, item is not on list. So we're going to create that one too. Finally, the delete item, it asks what item do you want to delete. Here I'm going to put B just to show you, and it deletes B. Alright, the first thing we're going to work on is the user interface, and the user interface again is the UI, and the UI is how the user interacts with the application. So in our case, the user interacts with these types of buttons, and I'm going to show you how to create that right now. Go ahead and open up a clean snap, and first off, we're going to create our different sprites. And you can see over here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 sprites. So I'm going to go ahead and make those 4 sprites. For the first sprite, I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to rename this sprite the first button, which I believe was add item. So I'm going to type in add item. In this add item, I went and looked for a website. I just searched up free button creator, and it was the first link that came up. I clicked on that, and this allows me to create buttons. So you can make it however you want. I'm renaming this one add item, and again you can do whatever you want with it. Change the color, add a little bit of style to it, bubble effect, whatever it is you want. I'm not too worried about that. And maybe borders, shadow, orientation. Yeah, that's all up to you, right? the way you're going to add the buttons is you're going to download, take the downloaded button, take it over to Snap, and put it on that sprite. So now I have a button here that's called Add Item. I'm going to do the same for the rest of them, and I'm going to pause this just to save a little bit of time, and you'll see it done when I resume. Alright, so now that I have all my buttons here, I'm going to start working on the actual coding, starting with the Add Item sprite. So I go to the Add Item sprite. Again, make sure that you rename your sprites the way they're supposed to be named. So this one's not sprite 2, this one's actually clear list. For search, let's search. And for delete item, it's delete item. I'm start working with the add item. For the add item, there's one thing I need to do first, and that is to start the program. So when I start the program, I need to set a few variables first, and that is to make the actual list. And for this one, I'm going to go into control, and I'm going to press when the green button is clicked, or when the green flag is clicked. And here I'm going to go into variables and create a variable, and I'm just going to call this variable shopping list. Press OK. And basically I'm just going to set shopping list to a list, which is right here. Notice that if I were to do this and I click the green flag, it creates a shopping list with one item already in there, but the item is blank. So that's why I need to close this, so it's just telling it that it's going to be a list. Also notice that it does two things. It resets the variable back to the list having nothing. So that should give you a clue onto what's going to happen or what's going to be used in clear list. But for right now, again, we're worried about adding the item. I am running the script whenever this sprite is clicked, right? So if I want to add an item, I need to click on that button. So that means I'm going to have to go here and use a when I am clicked. Yes, I can use both. Hat blocks or the starters in the same script, and that's what I'm going to do here. So when I click on add item, or when I am clicked, it's going to ask the user something. So I go into sensing, ask. It's going to ask what item, or something along the question of what would you like to add? Question mark. And what it's going to add is the answer, right? But always, please make sure that you're always creating a variable for an answer, because if not, it's going to end up forgetting what the previous answer was, and you don't want that. You want to be able to store all the user responses. So again, we're going to go to variables, add or make a variable, and we're going to name this something that kind of describes, whether that really is that's good at describing whatever this answer is. So if I'm going to ask for what would you like to add, I'm going to put in added item, or sure, yeah, added item. I think that's good enough for me. So I'm going to press OK, and always make sure to set that to an answer. So go into sensing and then answer. Here what we're going to do is we're going to use an if statement, and this if statement is going to check whether the item is on the list, and if it is already on the list, it's going to give you a message like, hey, this item's already on the list. Otherwise, if it's not on the list, it's going to add the answer or the added item to the list. So I'm going to go to an if else. And this if else, we're going to use two new reporter blocks that we have not used yet. Or actually, they're predicates that we have not used yet, and that is to go to variables, and we're going to use contains. like so. Notice that there's this little icon here that looks like a ladder maybe, and that ladder is just asking for you to put the name of the list. In this case, the name of the list is called shopping list, and we're saying that if shopping list contains added item. If this is the case, you're just going to say this item, put a space, no, this item is already on the list. Okay, and if it's not on the list, so if that condition is false, it's going to add. The added item to shopping list. Alright, let's just see if it works. What item would I like to add? I would put carrots. Is that how you spell carrots? No, right? It's 2 R's. Press enter, and you can see that it adds carrots. Let's see what happens if I do it again with something else. I'm going to say water. Enter, it adds water to the end. Again, there are ways to add to different parts of the list, but for right now, we're just going to keep with that. Now, know that the variable added item has changed. So you can see right here that the variable has changed from carrots to waters. So just make sure later on for some other uses in these programs, that might be a problem, or it might actually be a solution to other problems that you might have. But just know that it does do that. It does update the value of that variable each time. Alright, so now we are going to work with my clear list. And let's just see really quickly what happens if I click on the green flag again. You're setting shopping list back to a normal list that does not have items in it. So if I click on the green flag, it pretty much does that. It clears the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to clear list. And I'll just take the script from add item, this one. And I'm just going to throw it into my clear list one right there. Right? So that's that. But instead of having the green flag, I'm going to use when I am clicked. So control when I am clicked. Again, it's when I am clicked because now we're talking about the clear list button, right? Let's add some items, see if it works. 2, again here I'm just adding random stuff. 3, 4, and I'm going to click on clear list, and it looks like it does clear the list. Now we're going to work on the search, on the search button. Alright, so I decided to leave the search sprite or search button up to you to fix because it's pretty much going to work the same way as the add item, except that it's going to search, right? Well, it's going to ask you, what would you like to search for? And then, depending on whether the answer is in the list, it should give you a clue about what blocks we're using, right? Because we're using the same blocks and we're using the same predicates over here. It should tell you item is already on the list, or it should tell you item is not on the list if, again, hint, the item isn't contained inside of shopping list. Alright, so one more time, you are going to create the script for the search button, which is simply going to tell you item is on the list if the item is in the shopping list, and it's going to tell you item is not on the list if the item is not contained inside of the shopping list. Alright, so just that one thing that you have to do. Again, if you need clues, it's pretty much almost the same thing as what's happening here. And now I'm going to work on the delete item. So it is your responsibility to get the search item button done. Alright, so now we are going to work on the delete one. And again, this one's going to work with a when I am clicked, and it's going to ask what item do you want to delete. This one's a little bit different because there's a lot of ways to do this, but I'm going to show you one way. Again, it's just going to act as a tool for you to have in your library. So you're going to go with for, and I'm going to use the renaming of this one, and I'm going to change it from I over to position. Press OK, and I'm going to say that when for position equals 1, 2, I'm going to go to variables, and I'm going to put length of, and length of shopping list. So it's going to go through each item in the shopping list, and it's going to check for something. And if, or what it's going to check for is that if the item position, again, because that's going to change. Let's take position, put it here. If item position of shopping list, right? So if the item position of shopping list equals to, I'm actually going to take this and put this in the equals, equals to the answer of this question, but again, I'm going to have to create a variable for that. Under variables, make a variable. I'm going to call it item deleted. Press OK. I right underneath the question, I'm going to put item deleted and make that equal to the answer. Alright, you're going to notice that you can use answer directly like that. Like, you don't have to create the variable, but I'm telling you, in the future, it's going to be so much easier if you just create the variable, because you won't have to be dealing with your previous answers getting deleted. So now that I have that, and if that equals to item deleted, it's then going to simply delete position, item position, right, of the shopping list. Okay, again, it's all red from top to bottom. Let's go ahead and see if it works. I'm going to add some items here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want to delete item. What item do you want deleted? I'm going to put 3. Enter, and it deletes the 3. Again, it's your responsibility to work on the search sprite or the search button, which is just going to tell you whether the item there is there or not. Make sure to complete this, complete the forms, make sure everything works, and that is it for today.